Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. I hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing great, and what a fabulous story we're listening to. It's a very tragic set of circumstances where an old man has fallen down the staircase after hearing a noise during the night because his grandson broke into the house to take some money from the freezer. And unfortunately that led to a very tragic event where the grandfather died, but he was in fact dying with pancreatic cancer and didn't have long left to live. But Adam has discovered that the ashes that have arrived at his father's house that belonged to his grandfather have been binned by his own father in the bin, in the dumpster, and he knows that that is no place for his grandfather's ashes. His grandfather deserves a better send-off than that, even though his grandfather might not have been the kindest person. So let's continue with our story. "Something smells jolly nice," said their father, as the family gathered around the dinner table for their evening meal. Adam could not bear to even look at his father. He felt so disgusted by the way he had disposed of his father's ashes earlier that morning. So he focused on the steaming plate of hot food presented in front of him that his mother had so lovingly cooked. In the Weber household, his father expected home-cooked meals to be served every night at 7 o'clock sharp, and no cell phones or gadgets were ever allowed anywhere near the table. It was a family rule that they had abided by for many years, and it did mean the family got to talk together and eat. Adam knew he was lucky to enjoy home-cooked food every night. Some people were not so lucky. "Those roses are very pretty, love," said Adam's father, looking at his wife. "Where did you get them from? Have you got a secret admirer or something that I should be worried about?" "No, silly, of course not," said Mrs. Weber, chuckling. "Adam came with me to the grocery shop this afternoon and insisted on buying me some roses. Isn't that terribly sweet of him? It was a lovely thing for him to do." "And where did this money come from, Adam?" his father asked, raising a brow. "You didn't exactly apply for that job at the warehouse, did you? So why are you suddenly flush with the cash? I thought you were broke." "Tyler gave me a loan," Adam lied. "Seems to me, son, you're loaning money left, right and centre from everyone these days. When you haven't even got a job yet, you should be ashamed of yourself. Even as we speak, you have outstanding debts with me. I'm surprised you haven't reapplied for an interview at that warehouse. They are still looking for people, I believe, and you would be wise to snap a job like that up." "Must we talk about this now, Howard?" said their mother, rescuing her son from her husband's indignant inquiry. "I think what Adam did was very kind, buying me those beautiful roses, and I appreciate them so much. I mean, I can't remember the last time you ever bought me roses, dear." Adam's father ignored the jibe. He judiciously changed the subject as quickly as he could. He knew that it was only ever on Valentine's Day, once a year, that he ever bought his wife a single red rose. Beyond that, he never bought her anything at all, not even a bunch of flowers. And he certainly did not want his lack of generosity to be brutally rubbed in his face like this. "This looks absolutely delicious, love," he said, smiling down at his plate. "You know chicken pie is my quintessential favourite." "That's why I made it for you, love. I know how much you enjoy it. I understand you received your father's ashes today, from Percy in the post. I'm sorry about that, love. It couldn't have been easy for you." "How do you know about that?" asked Mr. Weber brusquely, looking up at his wife suspiciously, after forking up some mashed potatoes, throwing them into his mouth, swallowing them up so fast that Adam was surprised he'd even managed to taste them. Adam noticed his father's face had flushed as bright red as a field of poppies. He knew his dad was angry and irate that his mother knew he had received the ashes in the post today. He began to play uncomfortably with his food, using his fork, looking extremely shifty, as if this was not a conversation he wanted to be having. "Well, I was at the book club, and one of the ladies happened to mention she'd been having a chinwag with Percy when she collected her post from him this morning. He said he felt terribly bad having to deliver you your father's ashes in the post to you. I gather he hates delivering cremated remains to people. Apparently you were incredibly stoic when you received them. Percy felt terribly sorry for you. He hates this part of his job, I believe." Howard Webber frowned, and Adam, who was studying his contemptuous, rather disdainful father over his chicken pie, could not help but think that his father looked incredibly ugly when he frowned. It was something he'd never actually noticed before until now. What had his mother ever seen in his father? His mother was a pretty thing, who looked almost as young as when they first got married. She always had a friendly smile on her face, and always made light of things, but his father looked like a miserable old toad, a slippery reptile, he thought. "Why do you go to that bloody book club, love, when all those garrulous women have nothing better to do with their time than natter and natter and natter? I can't believe everyone knows our business. My father's ashes have absolutely nothing to do with them. Nothing, you hear me?" Sylvette reached out to squeeze her husband's hands. "Don't be like that, love. I know it's upsetting for you. It can't be easy. But people are only interested because they care. Even though you could only take your father in small doses, and I realize that. There were people out there who genuinely cared for the man. And I think their concern is very sweet." "Interested? No one's interested," Adam's father barked. "They just want to put their prying noses into our business, and it is none of their business." "Well, now that you have the ashes, love, how about we get them buried at the cemetery and get a tombstone erected in your father's memory? I mean, to be fair, love, he did want to be buried, didn't he? Isn't it the right thing to do to honour his wishes? It's the next best thing, isn't it?" "Sylvette," said my father, slamming his fists on the table, so that all the crockery bounced and the glasses rattled precariously. "How many times have I discussed this with you? That is not going to happen." "Well, failing that, love, I understand that Percy was telling you that Malcolm really loved the creek in the woods. And I know it is such a pretty place. Percy said you could scatter the ashes there if you like. We could make a ceremony of it, throw flowers over the creek, even invite a few of your father's friends along. We could have a miniature wake here at the house. It would be such a lovely thing to do to honour your father's memory. Everybody's asking after him, you know. People would like to pay their last respects to him." "What part of the word no don't you understand, Sylvette? This is my father we're talking about, and what I do with his remains is my business." "Yes, but—" "It's too late, love, anyway." "What do you mean, too late?" asked Sylvette, raising a questionable brow. "Well, when Percy delivered the urn of ashes this morning, I took them up to the woodgrove myself. I threw them over the creek. I said a few words to my father. Happy now? It's done and dusted." Sylvette frowned. "We would have liked to have been there too. Brought some flowers or a wreath, perhaps." "I'm disappointed, love, that you did all that without family and friends. It was a thoughtless thing for you to do." Howard Webber slammed his fist furiously on the table. He glared indignantly at his wife. "This is my father we're talking about. Malcolm Webber. I've done what is best for him." And with that, everyone shut up, observing the early warning signs that antagonizing Howard Webber would not be in your best interests if you wanted to emerge from the dinner table unscathed. "I'm certainly not hungry any more," said Sylvette, getting to her feet, grabbing the dinner plates from the table to take them back to the kitchen to soak in the hot soapy water. "I think I feel a headache coming on. If any of you want dessert, there's ice cream in the freezer. Just help yourself." Adam watched as his mother sorrowfully walked up the steps to her bedroom, quietly closing the door behind her. Sylvette was a sensitive soul, and even though Malcolm Webber was not everybody's favourite person in the world, Sylvette absolutely hated to see his ashes had been treated with such disdain. Adam knew that if his mother had an inkling of the truth, of what her husband Howard had really done with Malcolm Webber's ashes, she would have been incandescent with rage, and Sylvette Webber never got angry about much. It would seem the matter over his grandfather's ashes had left Sylvette feeling very distressed. What is it you're saying?" asked Tyler, when Adam, who was lying across his bed, was talking to his friend on his cell phone. "He what? You're kidding, right?" "No, I'm not. I saw him myself." "You mean he literally tossed the urn with his own father's ashes into the dumpster. Bloody hell, that's brutal. He must have really hated him. I mean, who does that? I think that's an understatement, bro. I hate to say this to you, Tyler, but he actually enjoyed discarding them like that. I think it made him feel quite triumphant. That sucks. I mean, even if your grandfather was a miserable old sod, he didn't deserve that. Does your mum have any idea what he did? No, she doesn't have a clue. And if she did, God forbid. Let me tell you, Tyler, if my mother had any idea what my father had done with his father's ashes, I think she would lose it big time. You know my mother. Nothing ruffles her feathers. She was telling my dad we should take the urn to the cemetery, bury it on a plot, and get a tombstone erected. Now, my dad always bullies my mother, but let me tell you, there are times she'll stand up for herself, and this is one of them. What did your father say about that? Well, he erupted, didn't he? Slammed his fists furiously on the table, saying that his father's remains were his own business, that kind of thing. Bloody hell! My mother went on to say that it might be nice to scatter the ashes over the creek, to have a ceremony with family and friends afterwards. Oh, goodness gracious, this gets worse by the second. I bet that went down with him like a lead balloon. You don't want to know. My mother just literally marched up the stairs, went to her bedroom, slammed the door behind her. Didn't want to talk to my father at all. She's very upset. Anyway, Dad lied to her. About what? About the ashes, of course, Tyler. He told my mother a barefaced lie. He said he'd scattered his father's ashes over the creek already, so it was too late to do something. Wow, an outright lie in his own wife's face. That sucks, bro. Well, the good news is, I retrieved the urn from the dumpster myself, without my father's knowledge. Currently it is residing under my bed right now, even as I speak. I've hidden it very well so it can't be seen easily, but I need to get rid of the ashes, as you can understand. Tyler whistled. What are you going to do with the urn? If your father knew, he would go absolutely ballistic. My bet is he'd bring his belt out, and he'd beat you within an inch of your life. But he won't find out, Tyler. As far as he's concerned, he's already disposed of his father's ashes. So you and me, we're going to get up early tomorrow and bid Malcolm Webber farewell. We are? Yes, we are. I want you up at the crack of dawn, Tyler. It's very, very important. We need to do a nice ceremony for my grandfather. It would be a nice thing to do. I've bought a bunch of roses. They're in my closet, soaking in a bucket of water. I also bought my mother a bunch of roses. I can't remember the last time Dad pampered her with any flowers. She's been genuinely very devastated about my grandfather's passing, even though he was never terribly nice to her. But you know what? She's got a very generous heart. Anyway, we'll take those flowers to the grove, and of course the urn of ashes, and scatter them over the creek. We can say farewell to my grandfather in a really nice ceremony. We can apologize for what happened. We can tell him how sorry we are. What do you think? It'll certainly ease my conscience a little. I feel as if I've saved him from a landfill site, and it's good to feel I can do something for him after his death. I'm game. It's a great idea, Adam. It really is. Let's do it. Anything's got to be better than being buried in a landfill site. And as you say, we couldn't save your grandfather when he fell down the stairs, but we can save him from ending up in that awful place. Are you going to tell your mother what your father did? I mean, it really sucks, doesn't it? Of course I'm not telling him. That would absolutely devastate her. Besides, I don't have a death wish with my father, do I? Don't forget to set your alarm for really early, Tyler. None of this sleeping in. I know what you're like. I'll see you in the morning. We'll cycle to the old church, place our bicycles in the usual spot against the stone walls, walk through the cemetery at the back, and access the woods that way. That way it's very discreet. Rightio. See you in the morning, then. I still cannot get over the Bigfoot I saw at the cemetery, Adam. The Bigfoot that I actually just pushed over and thought was a youth. It was an incredible experience. I'm also glad you saw him, Adam, because if I'd seen him on my own, I would be doubting what happened. It's all so surreal to me. I mean, how many years have we been actively going to that graveyard, hoping and praying that something outer-worldly would happen to us? And nothing ever did. Absolutely nothing. Do you remember when we were little? We were sure we would encounter a ghost, but we realised that graveyard was benign. And then last night the graveyard relinquished for us a cryptic surprise that we never saw coming. I couldn't believe I chased after a juvenile Bigfoot, throwing him to the ground. I genuinely thought it was a local youth, Adam. I'm surprised I even caught him. He was so nimble on his feet. It all seems so implausible now, doesn't it? It's so easy to doubt oneself that it happened. But it did. I keep pinching myself and saying, yes, Tyler, it did happen. Get over it. Well, you gave him your dog tags, didn't you? The fact you no longer have them on your person is a reminder that your encounter with that juvenile Bigfoot did indeed happen, and was in no way a dream. My dad's noticed I'm not wearing my dog tags anymore. I never take them off, you see. I told him they got lost, and believe it or not, he gave me some more dog tags. He had 3 lots that he made, so I'm wearing a new set of his. I wasn't going to tell him what happened. He'd think I was delusional if I told him my story, especially if I said I'd chased after a juvenile Bigfoot and thrown him into the ground. Well, to the ground. He'd never believe that. He wasn't angry with you, was he, for losing your dog tags? Of course not. He was cool about it. I'm glad I gave the Bigfoot those dog tags. I had to do something nice after throwing him onto the ground like that. So am I glad. He was very pleased, I can tell you that. The following morning, Adam was awoken to the trilling sound of his alarm going off rather abruptly, disturbing the tranquil peacefulness of his slumber. Adam would have loved nothing better than to sleep in late. Getting up early in the morning was an alien concept to him, but he didn't hesitate to jump out of bed. He and Tyler had an important job to do that could not wait, as Adam needed to get the urn out of the house before it was finally found by his mother, who regularly rather fastidiously cleaned his bedroom. If the urn was discovered, and Adam's father had learnt about what his son had done, that would not be a pretty picture in his head. He could almost see his father's face going red with fury, his jowls trembling in indignation, and then his father would pull out his leather belt, and Adam squeezed his eyes tightly. He didn't want to imagine the rest of that, but he knew he'd likely lose his ability to walk for an entire week. Adam trotted over the bedroom floor, towards the bathroom ensuite. When he finally reached the sink, he ran a tap of icy cold water, splashing it over his face to wipe away the sleep from his eyes. Then he brushed his teeth vigorously to get rid of that stale morning breath. At this point he was beginning to feel sharper and more alert, as if he was ready to face the day that lay ahead. Whispers of a faint light sneaked mischievously through a tiny crack in his bedroom curtain, revealing that the dawn was about to break. "What are you staring at?" Adam asked the family's beloved Burmese cat Esther, who was lying across the duvet looking at him through green eyes. "Yes, I'm going out. I'm sorry to deprive you of my body warmth, but some of us have work to do." Esther opened and closed her eyes, as if she was unimpressed and unamused by his limp excuse, and didn't take kindly to Adam's exit from the bed. Esther had gravitated towards Adam, choosing to adopt him as her favourite human being, even though theoretically she was supposed to be his mother's cat. But Adam suspected she never fancied lying close to his father, and would always snarl at the man if he ever got close to him. "I don't think Esther likes you, love," Adam's mother Sylvette would tease Adam's father, who would retort, "Good, 'cause I don't like her very much either. I don't like things that have thorns for nails." Esther contentedly, but rather lackadaisically, stretched out her paws, fixing her gaze steadily on Adam, as he ferreted around in his wardrobe hurriedly for the clothes he was going to wear. He soon decided on a pair of caramel chinos and a pale blue cotton shirt. He bent down rather awkwardly under the bed to retrieve his grandfather's urn, which was clandestinely hidden in an old towel. Finally he collected the bunch of roses that was soaking in the bucket of water in his closet. He would find a bag to contain these items when he finally got downstairs into the kitchen. He tiptoed cautiously across the upstairs landing, very nearly dropping his grandfather's urn, when he suddenly heard his father's booming voice interrupting the peaceful silence, like a great big walloping crash of thunder, which was coming from the half-open door in the main bedroom, belonging to his parents. Adam flinched. Please God, his father was not about to get out of bed at this particular moment. He inwardly begged. "Is that you, Adam?" came his father's voice. Adam's heart almost missed a beat. It was pounding violently in his chest. "Yes, it's me, Dad." He peered through the door, making sure that his father could not see what he was carrying in his hands. His father was sitting up in bed, going through his cell phone messages, while his mother lay fast asleep at his side. "Hello there," said Adam. "I'm sorry I didn't disturb you, did I? I'm off downstairs." "No, you didn't disturb me. I was already up. Couldn't actually sleep," said his father, looking at him quizzically through his glasses. "You can come in, you know. You don't have to just stand there looking so gormless. I can show you a couple of funny skits on my cell that I've just been watching if you like." "No, it's all right. Maybe another time, Dad. I'm going out. I need to get going," said Adam quickly. "You are?" said his father, raising a brow. "You never get up this early, Adam. What's got into you?" "Tyler wants us to get up early so we can lift a few weights at the gym at his home." "Really?" said his father. "You do surprise me." He grinned. "Your sister told me you fancy that girl, Bonnie. Is that why you're pumping the weights? You want to impress her with a ripped body. Is that right, son? Good on you." "Something like that, Dad," said Adam, flushing red, holding on so tightly to the urn, concealed behind the door. "Good on you, son, as I keep saying. Nothing like a good workout to make a man out of you. You're a puny little thing. You could do with a lot more brawn, and girls like men with muscles, you know." "Well, I better get going," said Adam. "My workout awaits me." "Good luck with that, son. You're going to need it." Adam was relieved to leave the landing and to finally make his way down the staircase. He was hoping to God that his father wouldn't get a sudden urge to come downstairs to make some coffee for himself. But thankfully all remained quiet in the house. Adam stealthily removed his bicycle from the yard shed, attaching the bag containing his grandfather's ashes to the handlebar. He gingerly cycled down the country lane to the old church, relieved to see that Tyler had got there first and was waiting patiently for him. He seemed very alert this morning, almost as if he'd been up for quite a while, which rather surprised Adam, as he was normally such a sleepyhead. "Thank God you got up early," said Adam, smiling warmly at his friend, relief washing over his face. "I was worried you were going to sleep in this morning, Tyler, and that I would end up having to sprinkle the ashes all over the creek myself. So I'm glad you came." "As if I would let you do that," said Tyler, raising a brow. "I also need to make my peace with the old man. I feel terrible about what we did. The whole thing has stolen much of my sleep, you know. When you told me what your father did with Malcolm's ashes, it freaked me out. How could anyone throw them in the dumpster? I think what we're doing is nice for him, and it'll help me make my peace with him. I feel relieved that he intended to take his life, or I don't think I'd be able to alleviate the guilt within me. It's bad enough as it is already." Adam and Tyler parked their bicycles discreetly against the stone walls of the old church. Then they sashayed rather tentatively over the green, crisp grass that was drenched in morning dew. They walked through the church towards the graveyard, and they finally took a breezy shortcut through the woods to get to the creek. The morning was beginning to wake up, breathing out vital gasps of soft gossamer light, which danced over the gravestones they had passed. Before long they were trailing through a congregation of tall, lofty trees, the only certain witnesses to the ceremony that they were about to discreetly conduct, which Adam hoped with all his heart would be to his grandfather's liking. Was he looking down on them at this very moment, as they prepared to toss his ashes over the creek, he wondered. Tyler was holding the mixed bouquet of roses in his hands, while Adam was clutching the bag containing his grandfather's urn tightly to his chest, as if he was absolutely terrified it would drop to the ground and break. The two boys marched steadily towards the creek in earnest, their faces fixed on the path ahead. Adam was surprised. His heart was pounding in his chest. He felt like a naughty little boy that had broken into his mother's pantry to steal the cookies and was about to get caught red-handed by his belligerent father. The woodgrove was filled with the beautiful sounds of the dawn chorus. Adam had never been up this early before, and never had he walked in the woods at this time of the day. He was struck by how magnificent it was. Maybe he was missing out sleeping in late after all. Even Tyler appeared to be thoroughly enjoying the walk. The ground beneath their boots was richly fertile, while the smell of the pine terpenes teased their nostrils with its woody notes. Before long, the two teenagers reached the creek that was covered by an arched bridge. The silvery, reflectant water twinkled in the morning light, and a couple of dragonflies were flying briskly over it. Trickles of warm sunshine began to brush against the teenagers' shoulders. "This place is absolutely perfect," said Adam approvingly. "Perfect!" Adam opened the plastic bag, removing the cheap-looking urn from it, and the two teenagers began spooning handfuls of ashes into their hands, throwing them over the creek, so that they floated across the fast-moving water. A single dragonfly brushed past them, and Adam could not help but feel that maybe this was a sign from his grandfather. Following the ashes came the pretty rose heads that they sprinkled over the water. They, too, floated away. "Malcolm, this is for you," said Tyler, taking the initiative to speak, "to let you know that you are not forgotten, and that many people have been thinking about you at this time, and are very sorry that you have died. We are also sorry that you had to fall down that staircase. We hope you didn't suffer. We're sorry that we were the ones that startled you. We should never have broken into your house, and I apologize for that." "Grandpa," said Adam, "I'm sorry about your fall. I really am. I feel dreadful about what happened to you. And I'm sorry we broke into your house to take your money. We did a very bad thing. I hope you can forgive us, and I hope you're at peace." Soon they threw the roses across the water, and then said a couple of prayers. When the two teenagers had completed their ritual, they heard a chattering noise. It sounded like two people talking together very excitedly. And then there they were, the juvenile Bigfoot who was wearing the dog tags around his neck, standing next to a very intimidating female Bigfoot. The juvenile was pointing to Adam and Tyler excitedly, as if they had become his new best friends. He talked in a chirpy enthusiasm to the female. Adam and Tyler didn't know how to react, for the juvenile Bigfoot was clearly with its mother, and was talking about them. The female Bigfoot was possibly the most intimidating creature that Adam and Tyler had ever beheld. Both young teenagers began to tremble nervously, because of her size. She was so powerful, so incredibly daunting. Adam estimated, after much debate with Tyler after the encounter, that the female Bigfoot could have easily been 10 foot tall, but Tyler believed she was actually taller. But much like the juvenile Bigfoot, she was so human-looking, with a distinctive pyramid-shaped head, overlong arms and a strapping, robust physique, with muscles that were very ripped, that defined her entire body. She was covered in long, flowing dark hair, that in the morning light gave off a slightly auburn hue. The little Bigfoot began to point at the dog tags that Tyler was wearing around his neck, the new ones his father had given him to replace the ones he claimed to have lost. The Bigfoot then pointed to his mother, and suddenly Tyler knew exactly what the little Bigfoot wanted. He wanted him to give his mother some dog tags as well, and Tyler did not hesitate to oblige the juvenile's request. Tyler knew that the dog tags attached to the silver chain given to him by his father would never ever fit over the large female Bigfoot's head and almost non-existent neck, but that did not appear to matter, nor did it bother the female Bigfoot in the slightest. She eagerly took the dog tags from Tyler, with dark, shining eyes. She let out a thrilled whistle as she inspected the dog tags with her thick sausage-sized fingers, and then she whooped in delight. What happened next surprised both Tyler and Adam, as the Bigfoot gaily slapped them both gently on the back, which was her way of saying thank you to them. And then excitedly the two Bigfoots sauntered away, chatting together in a language the young teenagers had never heard before. "Bloody hell," said Tyler, looking up at Adam in bemusement. I'm shaking. That female Bigfoot was so intimidating. I was terrified of her. But in the end, she was just so benevolent. Do you know what I think, Tyler? I think while we were conducting our ceremony for my grandfather, we were being watched by the Bigfoots. And the little Bigfoot spotted that you were wearing more dog tags. He wanted his mother to have some. That's why they revealed themselves to us. He loved those dog tags. But in the light I can see why. The silver just sparkles, doesn't it? What are you going to say to your father when he realizes you've lost yet another set of dog tags? Oh, he'll be cool about it. But I'm not going to tell him it was two Bigfoots that are in ownership of the tags that I've mislaid. He'd never believe it in a month of Sundays, let me tell you. 1 year later. You're not going to believe what happened to me today, Howard, said Sylvette, Adam's mother, making light-hearted conversation around the family dinner table. I took little Minky for her first walk in the woodgrove. Minky was the new puppy the family had recently adopted, a Scottish Terrier mix. Did you enjoy your walk? Well, if you're asking if Minky enjoyed it, she absolutely loved it. And so did I, as it happens. Anyway, we went to the creek. You will never believe what I saw there. What did you see there? Asked Mr. Webber. Sometimes, love, you do drag on your conversations. Spit it out, will you? What did you see? Someone has only erected a very expensive park bench overlooking the creek. It's the perfect place to sit, and there's a copper plate attached to the bench, which says in memory of Malcolm Webber and his beloved dog Benny, who loved coming to this creek. May they be reunited together in heaven, and may their souls rest in peace. Isn't that beautiful, Howard? I cannot think who would have erected that bench, but it couldn't have come cheap, let me tell you. But isn't it a lovely, generous thing to do? There are obviously people out there who cared for your father, you know. Who the hell would do a thing like that? Said Mr. Webber, looking furious. Why would anyone want to do something for that miserable old bugger? He doesn't deserve a bench over the creek. Adam inwardly smiled, as he knew that he and his best friend Tyler had erected that bench to make up for the funds that they'd taken from the old man, and it pleased him to see his formidable father looking peeved. He glanced down at his cell to see Bonnie had called him, and a big smile developed on his face. Things were looking up in his life. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what a wonderful story that was. I really enjoyed it. So many twists and turns on the story, and very sad that the old man died. But he was dying anyway. Not that it makes up for what Adam and his friend Tyler did. But goodness gracious, at least Adam retrieved those ashes from the dumpster and was able to do something beautiful for his grandfather. What an amazing story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.